Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Relatively Weird. Let me do this. Hold on. The podcast where two cousins get together and talk about everything weird. I'm Jilli.
And I'm Kim.
I was going to say I'm Kim.
That's how it goes, right?
I'm everybody. Okay. We are going to talk about Joseph Vacher.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay. He was once, or is known as, the French Ripper.
Oh.
So, he was born November 16th, 1869. No, every time I did my notes, I was like, 19, nope, 18. We don't do a lot of old ones, so.
No, we don't.
He was born to a peasant family on the south side of France. Now, caveat, there's a lot of French names.
You did say there's going to be a lot of...
And places and providences and stuff like that. So, I apologize to anybody who speaks French or is French or... Yeah. I'll try my best.
You can do it.
He was one of 15 children.
Oh, God.
His twin sister died in infancy choking on a piece of bread.
Oh, God.
I'm like, don't give babies bread. Right? They're not supposed to have bread. Infancy, whatever. Yeah, I guess. I learned what kids don't have knees until they're like 6 or something. Oh, boy. Okay. When he was young, he was bitten by a stray dog and given a rabies vaccination. That will come up later.
It's not them then, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
And no worries, it's not about rabies.
Son of a bitch.
Although he would like it to be, but yeah. His mother died when he was 14, and then, his father was there raising all of 15 children. Joseph was known to be a difficult kid. He was found in a pasture breaking the legs of a cat. So
Trash.
His dad sent him to a monastery, but it's like a school for monks.
Okay.
What a monastery is, right? Your
I know
Catholicism
religion is about as good as I know kids.
So, while in the monastery, he became very religious. However, he was expelled because he was caught having performed sexual acts with other students. And I imagine they're all boys, the monks. So obviously, between that and Catholicism and all that, he was expelled. Mm-hmm. So he was forced to work some odd jobs, and he often visited brothels / just prostitutes, which led to him contracting a venereal disease, which then led to him losing his left testicle.
Yowza.
When he was 23, he decided to join the military, but his fellow soldiers were like, he was like the weird one.
What?
Yeah.
No.
So they said he would like stare at their necks and whisper something about like blood flow, and they were like, this guy's so weird. What the fuck?
Ew.
So he was given like temporary medical leave for being like a weirdo, weird? For being basically like mentally, they're like, take some time.
Okay, all right.
During his leave, he met this woman, Louise, in the local village.
Louise. They
kind of hit it off. She was impressed by him. He was like wearing his uniform, so she knew he was like military. And he took her to a date at a local cafe and proposed to her. And she was like, this is like the first date.
Yes.
She's like, and he goes, but if you ever betray me, I'll kill you.
Okay.
So she, after this, was a little less enthusiastic about...
Not quite as impressed anymore.
No. So she did it the way of like, ha, oh, I have something to do, like kind of distance herself a little bit. He would write letters to her, and she finally was like, you know what, my parents, they just don't approve of us getting married. I'm so sorry. We can't do this anymore. So Joseph came back from temporary leave and he discovered that he had been passed over for a promotion. Which, I mean, if you're on...
You were on leave.
Yeah.
The hell did you expect?
Well, apparently a lot, because he got drunk and he threatened his unit with a knife. And then he slit his own throat in an attempted suicide and lived. And after that, they were like, yep, you're gone for good.
We don't need to hand you weapons.
No, my God. So jobless, he went to go find Louise.
Oh, great.
You have nothing else to do.
Poor Louise.
So she had been working in a different village at that point. She was like a housemaid. He first showed up at her parents' house, and he was like, reconsider our proposal. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Oh, no.
And then when that failed, he went to go find her at her employer's home. So she was like, she answered the door, and she was like, what the hell are you doing here? She told him she didn't want to marry him, and he became very angry and demanded that she pay him back for the dates that he took her on. So I think the initial date he proposed, and then I think she kind of like tried to wean him off. Louise agreed as long as he never contacted her again. He got angry and shot her in the face with a revolver before turning the gun on himself and shooting himself in the head twice. So, yes. I'm only laughing because of Kim's horror-stricken face.
What entity wants this man to live so badly?
So what had happened was he got a revolver along the way, but the bullets he purchased were only half filled with gunpowder. So it resulted in her having her teeth knocked out. So she lived.
Oh, good.
And he lived too, but it resulted in the right side of his face being like scarred and basically paralyzed. His speech was slurred, and he was deaf in one ear, which would later always like leak pus.
Oh, no.
But
okay.
the two bullets were always lodged in his head.
Oh.
So after that, they were like, all right, you're going into an asylum so we can like figure this, recover, and also figure out if you're truly mentally ill or if you can stand trial for this attempted murder.
Right.
So he, they would observe him. He would appear to have like auditory hallucinations, which honestly, I don't know. He might have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was not well beforehand. He would occasionally smash his head against walls. One time he tried to escape and was caught by the guards a few days later. They had taken him back like on a train, and he told them like, all right, I have to pee. Can I just pee out the door? And they were like, okay. And he leapt out.
Shocking. This is a man who tried to shoot himself in the face.
Yeah.
He's not putting it... I wouldn't put it past him to jump off a moving train.
They captured him again a few days later. So after observation, Joseph was found not guilty due to insanity, and they moved him to a different mental hospital, San Robert Asylum, which had better conditions. Joseph wrote to Louise again. So he wrote to her when he first went to the first asylum. The first asylum was like overcrowded. It's actually good that we had that one about asylums, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is just a callback. Very crowded, very just kind of a holding place for people.
Yeah.
This one was a little bit better. So he wrote to Louise. Louise's father would always just destroy the letters because I'm not going to give them to my daughter. She's traumatized for life. His treatments included talk therapy, hydrotherapy, opium, and leeches, which another callback, the
Bloodletting.
The phlebotomist. He exhibited no violence while he was in there, and he eventually told his doctors, like, he accepted his punishment, which, I mean, this isn't, if you're in a mental institution, I think even at that time they were like, we just want to get you better so you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
After 4 months, he was discharged.
Oh, God.
They gave him all his personal items, including a knife and a revolver.
Oh, fantastic. What?
I imagine it was the revolver that he used to shoot himself and Louise.
With the bad bullets.
Yeah.
The cheap
Yeah, maybe
ones.
they, like, took him out. Like, although maybe you should keep him in.
Okay.
He first stayed with one of his sisters, but she was like, all right, I'm sick of you. You should go back to the monastery.
Yes.
When he left her house, she found crumpled up letters to Louise. Poor Louise. God. The monastery also didn't want him back. So.
Well, I mean, they did kick him out for
much
relation.
But like since then you've
just gotten worse.
Right. Rejected. Joseph. There's always a Joseph, man.
I know there's a lot of bad Josephs in our stories. Oh no.
He resigned to wandering the French countryside looking for food and working odd jobs. And he used his military background to gain trust and sympathy. Mm-hmm. Here we go with the towns. Now, he was a vagabond, so there's a lot of, like, towns that I didn't put in or tried to pronounce. So, basically what you need to know is it's from town to town. It's the French countryside. It's mostly, like, poorish people or farmers.
Okay.
He reached nope.
Can't even say an English word.
He reached the town of Beaurepaire in May of 1894. See, I had to think, like, I didn't say 19. 1894. While out walking, he spotted a 21-year-old mill worker named Eugenie Delhomme.
Okay.
That's what I'm going with. I hope that that's correct. She stepped out back for a break. She never came back.
Ugh.
The next day, she was found with a bruised and cut throat. Her lips and her right breast were missing.
Oh
and
my God.
Her stomach and chest had been beaten in and mutilated. So a few of this woman's exes were arrested and interrogated, but they didn't do it. God. This is going to be one of those things where it's like, I can't... Like, the fact that he... Well, anyway, we'll get into it. The police found a knife from the scene, but it was discarded later.
No. Okay. Don't need that.
What's that joke of, oh my God, what's his name, where he's like, oh, like, let's just like rub these fingerprints right off there. We don't need that.
I don't know. But in the last story we just did and this story, you feel like that's what police just decided to do.
I mean, maybe I can like, but this is like 100 years before that. Maybe I can excuse some of it, but I don't know. So some witnesses say they saw a man with a scarred face around the area. So he has a distinct look.
Yes.
And a distinct smell, according to some witnesses. Oh. He was released just 49 days before this incident occurred from the hospital. So he continued to travel from town to town, playing the accordion for random people, and always writing to Louise.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just leave her alone, man.
In November of that year, he came across a 13-year-old girl named different Louise Marcel in the town of Vidabon. Sure.
Sounds great. Sounds French to me.
He slit her throat, mutilated her body, and raped her corpse.
Ugh.
So this is gonna be like his MO.
Yeah.
Afterwards, a neighbor was blamed for the murder and then later absolved. And he just, at this point, it's just like, as long as you blow town afterwards,
oh, right,
you're fine.
You have no ties to these people. Why would they ever think?
But the only thing is you do look distinct. I don't know. I mean, how many people are walking around? Maybe. I don't know. Like,
but even at that, I guess.
Like
even
in
at
that
though, so what could you say? Like, there was a weird looking dude around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
did you actually see him do it? Because if you actually saw him do it, great. But I mean, I suppose eventually they could put it together. Like, he's in all of these towns where all these bad things start happening.
Yeah. In May of 1895, another woman, Augustine Morteau, was beheaded. Nope, she was not. says was headed. Oh no, don't worry, he beheaded somebody later. That's why I thought we were there. I don't know if you want to leave this in.
I'll think about it.
It's also almost 10 p.m., so this is going great. Okay. In May of 1895, another woman, Augustine Morteau, was headed to see her sick brother in a neighboring town. I'm so sorry. You should leave it in because it's going to be context. It's not funny. She went to go see her sick brother, guys. He would stab her in the neck, chest, and mutilate her abdomen. Augustine was 17.
Ugh.
He stole her shoes, and he cut holes to make room for his toes. Well, I don't know. You're a vagabond and, like, you traveling, like...
I guess. You need shoes.
A local farmer noticed his disheveled shoe. That's really hard to say. Disheveled shoes. You're trying. Disheveled shoes.
I don't think I've ever described shoes as disheveled.
Well, I don't know. What do you call it? Like, toe up from the floor up. Okay.
Oh, no.
Toe up.
Disheveled to me is just like you just woke up kind of look is disheveled.
They noticed his
holes
holy shoes. What would you describe it as?
His
Okay.
The ladies' shoes with holes in them that he was wearing.
Well, she was a peasant, so they probably weren't like super fancy.
I suppose.
Okay, he noticed that he had shoes that were not good, and he offered him a new pair. But Joseph destroyed the shoes, the old shoes, and he thought it was weird, and he told the local authorities, like, oh, maybe this guy, like, he was trying to hide something. I don't know all the ins and outs. Like, if you go to the police and you're like, I saw a man destroy his shoes, they're gonna be like, all right.
Listen, if you see something, say something.
It's true. So they caught up to him, actually. And Joseph denied knowing anything about the local murder. And when he showed the police his, like, military papers, they were like, well, it couldn't be you. And he was like, I thought I saw somebody over there. And they went the opposite direction, and he left.
It wasn't me with the shoes. What shoes?
So on August 24th, 1895, this is the woman. A 58-year-old woman was found nearly beheaded in her home, found by her son.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, her corpse had also been raped. So there was also talk around the town that a man was stalking young boys in the woods. I don't know. They were just, like, playing, and he just was a huge weirdo. A week later, in the town of Benoit, I want to say, a 16-year-old shepherd named Victor Portelier was found strangled under a walnut tree. He was half naked, his intestines were strewn on the ground, and he had been raped. Victor had set out alone to supervise his cattle. So a lot of these people will be like peasant, like shepherdess type people. You know, alone. He traveled from town to town. Like I said, his MO would be the same. They were mostly like teenagers or old women.
Right.
Strangled, mutilated, sometimes raped. So one day a man saw Joseph kicking dirt over what looked to be like blood. And the guy asked, like, are you okay? And he just said, yeah, it's from a nosebleed. Meanwhile, the police from town to town were like, some guy blew through here and there's been murders. They found a school book page near one of the scenes that had the letters MARS written on it. So they arrested a man named Auguste Marcel. And when they realized that his last name began with MARC, they were like, it couldn't be you. And they released him. But I'm like, what is that? Like,
What a shocking piece of evidence you guys have there. They're just grabbing at straws.
They are. Meanwhile, a boy named Pierre Massot was found with his throat slit, his stomach open, his pants removed, and another local was blamed. He continued to travel freely. He made himself a rabbit fur hat, which he would say symbolized his purity with God. And when you look up like photos of him, it's just him in this hat. So I think this was also another thing that was just like, okay, but this guy has like a rabbit skin hat too. Like, he slurs, his face is weird, and he's got this hat. He carried a wooden club with him, which he scratched MJLBG into. Nobody knows what that means to this day. Who knows? Like, he writes letters to a woman who never gets them, probably never sends half of them.
It also sounds to me like he didn't shy away from people thinking he was weird. So,
yeah,
you could just be like, this means nothing, and I'm going to keep them guessing.
I mean, right. A 12-year-old girl on her way to church, Joseph tried to attack her. She screamed and he ran. Police caught up to him again, different police, showed them his military papers. They concluded they had the wrong guy yet again, so it's just like lather, rinse, repeat. He was arrested in another town for aggravated assault, and I think he was there for a little bit, but they let him go. I think it wasn't like a prison, it was like a jail. Nobody had connected him with the murders so far.
Good Lord.
After killing and mutilating 19-year-old Larotte and 14-year-old Rosina, or Rosie, I don't know how you say that in a French way.
French way?
He decided to lay low and spent a winter with a family, so a couple and their 2 children.
Oh, good Lord.
He read to the kids, and he played the accordion. He told them that his scars were from a horse that kicked him in the head. And then he went on his way, and they were completely fine. And
wow.
I think he stayed with one other family with kids, but nothing ever happened to them. Probably because like he needed a place for a while,
right.
You know what I mean? And by then they knew who he was, so it's like you can't just like escape.
You'd have to kill the whole family at that point.
He also obtained...
We'll cut that out.
Don't get any ideas. From there, he began to travel again. He obtained a dog and a magpie as pets. Ada, close your ears, because he tried to feed the dog one day, and the dog was like, nah, I'm not into it, and he killed the dog and the magpie. Just out of spite. Out of spite, I guess.
What the hell?
August 1897. He spotted a woman alone. I know. It seems like I'm just like, in this one, and this one, and this one. He went to attack her, and her screams alerted her husband and son who were nearby. He didn't know that they were nearby. They had tackled him to the ground. So he was arrested. He was originally going to be sentenced for like 3 months for attempted assault. They didn't know who he was.
But still, attempted assault, 3 months.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But so I think we would say detective. I think some of the sources say like judge, but I don't know if they're like one and the same at this point. Named Émile Fourquet. I think that's how you pronounce it. He had been tracking this guy since Victor, the 14-year-old. He was 14. The one under the walnut tree.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 1895.
Wow.
I don't really get into this too much, but basically he was like one of the first to kind of set up like a criminal profile. They were just starting to do things like blood splatter type stuff and footprints and all that sort of thing. He heard about this man in custody and asked for him to be transported over. During the train ride, what do you think happened?
Did he have to use the restroom again?
I don't think he told them that. He did try to escape out the door, but he was stopped. So,
goodness.
Fourquet interviewed Joseph on the murders throughout the French countryside. But Joseph denied having to do anything with them. He spoke about Louise and his stint in the mental hospital. So I feel like this had gone on for probably a few weeks. A few days or a few weeks. They didn't really get anything out of him. Fourquet tried a different tactic where he was like, look, I don't think you did it. So we just got to do some paperwork stuff and I'll let you go in like 2 days. He said, but I'm writing this book about vagabonds in the French countryside. And he said, I haven't done it. Like, can you kind of tell me like what sort of things you would see? Because, I mean, they knew he was at least a nomadic person. And he was like, oh my God, sure. And detailed all of the places that he went, all of the types of people that he saw. And it matched up exactly of the trail of murders that they they were like, cool. And now you're charged. So this is a pretty good tactic. He then confessed. And I believe they charged him with 11 murders, but some people think it could be up to like 27. He blamed the rabies vaccine that he had received as a child. He also said that God demanded he murder those people, and so because it was God's will, he has no remorse because he was just a pawn.
It can't be both things, Joseph.
Right. He also claimed he would just inexplicably fly into these rages and he couldn't control himself, and then he would wind up murdering somebody. And they were like, that's really convenient when you're around, teenagers mostly, people alone. Basically people who were like weaker than you.
Right.
You never flew into a rage around like big strong men who were,
that family that you lived with for a long stretch of time.
Right. So, and they also had said like, dude, you hid the bodies. Like you tried to cover it up, so you must have known it was wrong. But they did have to prove, because he had spent time in a facility before, they did have to prove that he was able, because they said he was insane last time he wasn't guilty. December of that year, he was transferred to a maximum security prison in Lyon. It fell to Fourquet to gather a team of specialists and doctors, so mostly, I think mostly like therapists type people who would be able to observe him. They specifically needed to know that the bullets in his brain weren't like on any kind of nerve endings that would cause him to be even more violent. And he would write letters to his family, some acquaintances, would-be victims and victims of his crimes. His return address would always be Jerusalem. So the police thought that this was something that he was trying to do for show, like, see how insane I am, my return address is Jerusalem.
Right,
I mean,
true.
He likened himself to being like Joan of Arc, where God would send a message and he would be the one to do whatever God's will was. So he was convicted of at least 11 murders and beheaded on December 31st, 1898. The guards had to drag him to the guillotine because he refused to walk. And a mold of his head was created so scientists could study it at that time anyway. I think it still exists, but it's more of just like a museum thing.
Nobody's.
And history would know him as the French Ripper, which I actually haven't gone into Jack the Ripper myself, but I think that this guy's worse. The same sort of stuff. I mean, violent, you're raping corpses, and they're all like young or weaker, physically weaker people than him, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the kids who are just kind of going about their day is pretty...
The 13, 14 year old.
Pretty awful.
Oh, Joseph.
Weird.
Yeah. Never heard of him?
I've ever heard of him.
I hadn't either. He came up on one of my, like, weird topic searches.
I mean, so I have to say, so the next story that we're going to do is old. A little bit older than that. But I always just think to myself, like, police work in that time frame was just so like, unless you saw somebody do it, like, it's
You
so
could get
hard.
you could just blow down,
Right.
apparently.
And
Jesus.
so you're just, the level of police work that they eventually did. I mean, they bungled it in the beginning, obviously,
a
but
lot, yeah.
at the end of the whole thing, it really, I mean, good work. I feel like that's kind of how they got Ted Bundy too, is trying to be like, you know what, you're so smart. So maybe it wasn't you, but I bet you can tell us what kind of a person this was.
Is that how they got him?
I'm pretty, like, if you listen to the Bundy tapes, he's just, and he's so arrogant.
Yeah.
And he's just loving that people are I'll talk to you. I would love to talk to you about this.
Right. Like a celebrity.
Yeah. It's just so gross. But, so that very ahead of their time, these people.
Yeah. The 4K seemed like, I think it set a lot of stuff in motion after that where they were like, yeah, I mean, it was obviously successful. So, I mean, I don't know what the history of police work is like in France, but that's what they do now. They set up a profile. And
I mean, I have to say, their take on his mental health seemed
kind of modern.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
That was very surprising.
I mean, the thing is, he obviously he was mentally unwell.
Yes.
But knew it was wrong to do that.
Yeah. Lied
So,
about it.
yeah.
Hid it. Yeah, of course. No, he was just doing this stuff in broad daylight, though.
I think mostly, yeah.
Because they're working.
Yep. They would say there would be basically kids working their jobs on the farm. And, you go out by yourself because why does anyone have to help watch your sheep for you? And he's just traveling along. Like, how do you do that? Like, you just work odd jobs and just keep walking.
I mean, I suppose at the time, probably just sneak into somebody's, like, outbuilding.
Yeah.
Sleep for the night.
Yeah, there were a few instances where, like, so when he escaped the first time, they found him in, like a type of outbuilding, just asleep. It's kind of like it's like I don't know. Like, are there vagabonds anymore? Really? Can you get anywhere these days? Well, France is different from here, but...
I mean, I suppose there are areas that aren't covered by cameras.
Are there, though? Even at stoplights,
I know.
Not anymore, but...
And who uses cash? I suppose if you're paying odd jobs. But it's like, even at that, people... What's your Venmo?
That's true, yeah.
I don't know, cash? What do you mean? I don't know. That's so weird.
The French Ripper.
Interesting.
Yeah. A little old-timey. It's a little bit easier to swallow than the newer stuff. Just because it's been a while, but...
The victims were rough, though.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like... I don't know. I was thinking about how many times I have to say, and then he raped the corpse. And on the one hand, I'm like, I don't know, maybe we should give a trigger warning. And then I'm like, just don't listen.
It's all the French Ripper, people.
Yeah, like, all of our stories are pretty crazy.
Nice. None of them are nice.
No, not usually. Well, no, not even, because I was going to say the makeup one.
There's still some pretty unpleasantness.
Yeah, and then the foot binding sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, good. 10:15. We can do it.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to Relatively Weird. If you like what you hear, make sure to leave us a review and follow us on your podcast player of choice. You can also find us at Relatively Weird the Pod on Instagram. If you have any stories you'd like us to talk about, send us an email at relatively weirdthepod@gmail.com. See you next week.